How are you guys doing? Today is Monday, March 29th, 2021, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I plan on reviewing the Elite matchups and performances from yesterday, Sunday, March 28th, and of course, I'm going to preview everything that's going on today as we navigate through the world of sports one day at a time. Starting in the NBA, the only primetime game last night happened in Denver as the Nuggets hosted the Atlanta Hawks. In this matchup, the Denver Nuggets would end up outscoring the Hawks by 22 points in the middle two quarters in order to win this game by 24. For the Atlanta Hawks in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting point guard, Trae Young, out of Oklahoma, who finished with 21 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 steals, alongside 7 turnovers in 34 minutes, as Young shot 8 for 14 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3, and 2 for 2 from the foul line. For the Denver Nuggets in this matchup, their leading scorer would come off the bench as their power forward. Jamal Green would finish with 20 points of his own. He went on to play 14 minutes in the game as he shot 7 for 12 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3, and 3 for 4 from the foul line. The starting scorer amongst the starters was their elite starting point guard, Jamal Murray, who finished with 17 points, 2 rebounds, and 4 assists in 31 minutes as he shot 7 for 11 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3, and 2 for 3 from the foul line. Alongside him, the Denver Nuggets elite starting center, Nicola Jokic, would finish with 16 points, 10 rebounds, and 8 assists, alongside 2 blocks in 28 minutes as he shot 7 for 12 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, and 1 for 2 from the line. With this win, the Denver Nuggets are now 28-18. That is the 5th best record in the Western Conference, tied alongside the Portland Trailblazers, as the Nuggets have won their last 2 games and 7 of their last 10. In the playoff picture, they now sit a game and a half behind the defending champs, Los Angeles Lakers. They and the Portland Trailblazers also happen to sit 3.5 games ahead of the 7th place San Antonio Spurs. And also with this win, the Nuggets are 6.5 games behind the first place Utah Jazz out west. With this loss, the Atlanta Hawks are now 23-23, tied with the Boston Celtics for the 6th best record in the Eastern Conference. With this loss, they've still won 7 of their last 10 games. In the playoff picture, they and the Celtics sit half a game behind the 5th place Charlotte Hornets, and they also sit a game ahead of the 8th place Miami Heat, who are just inside the playoff picture. And with this loss, the Hawks now sit 9 games behind the 1st place 76ers out east. Jumping at the games that weren't on prime time, jumping to Charlotte, the Charlotte Hornets hosted the Phoenix Suns, and this matchup would end up going to overtime off of a really big 3, I believe, from Devontae Graham that would send it in. But the Suns, of course, would prove to be the stronger team and pick up their 31st win of the season. For the Hornets in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting point guard, Devontae Graham, who finished with 30 points in 39 minutes, shooting 9 for 21 from the field, 7 for 16 from 3, and 5 for 5 from the foul line. And alongside him, their starting shooting guard, Terry Rozier, would finish with 22 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 turnovers in 44 minutes as Rozier shot 8 for 19 from the field, and 2 for 3 from the foul line. And for the Suns in this matchup, the leading scorer would be their elite starting shooting guard, Devin Booker, who finished with 35 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals in 42 minutes, as he shot 10 for 26 from the field, 4 for 11 from 3, and 11 for 12 from the foul line. Alongside him, the Suns' elite starting point guard and 11-time All-Star Chris Paul would finish with 16 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 steals in 38 minutes as he shot 5 for 16 from the field, 1 for 5 from 3, and 5 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the Phoenix Suns are now 31-14. That is the 2nd best record in the Western Conference, as the Suns have now won their last 2 games and 7 of their last 10. In the playoff picture, they sit 3 games behind the 1st place Utah Jazz and a game ahead of the 3rd place Los Angeles Clippers. And then with this loss, the Charlotte Hornets are now 23-22. That is the 5th best record in the Eastern Conference, as they now sit half a game behind the 4th place New York Knicks, and they also sit half a game ahead of the 6th place Atlanta Hawks and the 7th place Boston Celtics, to give you a hint of how close the East is, as they sit 8.5 games behind the 1st place Philadelphia 76ers. Jumping out to Tampa Bay, the Toronto Raptors hosted the Portland Trailblazers, and in this matchup, the Blazers would beat the Raptors 122-117. The big difference coming in the 3rd quarter, where they outscored the Raptors by 13. And in this matchup for the Toronto Raptors, their leading scorer would be their their elite starting power forward, Pascal Siakam, who finished with 26 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 assists in 39 minutes as he shot 8 for 16 from the field, 2 for 3 from 3, and 8 for 10 from the foul line. Alongside him, their starting shooting guard, Fred VanVleet, would finish with 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 8 assists in 38 minutes, shooting 7 for 19 from the field, 2 for 10 from 3, and 4 for 5 from the foul line. For the Portland Trailblazers in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting shooting guard, CJ McCollum, who finished with 29 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 3 blocks in 39 minutes, shooting 9 for 18 from the field, 1 for 7 from 3, and 4 for 4 from the foul line. Alongside him, their elite starting point guard, Damian Lillard, would finish with 22 points, 3 rebounds, and 11 assists in 38 minutes, shooting 7 for 21 from the field, 2 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the Portland Trailblazers are now 28-18. That's tied with the Nuggets for the 5th best record in the Western Conference, as the Blazers have now won their last 3 games and 7 of their last 10. In the playoff picture, they and the Nuggets, like I said earlier, sit a game and a half behind the defending champs in the 4 seed Los Angeles Lakers, and they also sit 3.5 games ahead of the 7th place San Antonio Spurs at the moment, as they sit 6.5 games behind the first place Utah Jazz in the playoff picture. And then with this loss, the Toronto Raptors are now currently sitting at 18-28. That is the 5th worst record in the Eastern Conference. They are now on a 2-game losing streak, as they've now lost 9 of their last 10 games. They are currently sitting 4 games behind the 8th place Miami Heat outside of the playoff picture, as they sit 14 total games behind the first place 76ers out east. And last but not least, going to the Staples Center, the Los Angeles Lakers, the defending champs, host the Orlando Magic. And the Lakers, without LeBron James or Anthony Davis, were able to pull off a 96-93 win after coming into the fourth quarter completely tied. For the Magic in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting shooting guard, Dwayne Bacon, who finished with 26 points and 8 rebounds in 33 minutes, shooting 9 for 19 from the field, 2 for 6 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. And then for the Los Angeles Lakers in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting point guard, Dennis Schroeder, out of Germany, who finished with 24 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals in 38 minutes, as he shot 7 for 14 from the field, 1 for 3 from 3, and 9 for 10 from the foul line. And alongside him, the Lakers starting small forward, Kyle Kuzma, finished with 21 points and 11 rebounds in 39 minutes, shooting 8 for 20 from the field and 5 for 15 from 3. With this win, the Los Angeles Lakers are now the 4th team in the Western Conference to pick up their 30th win of the season. They are now on a 2-game win streak, as they have now won 6 of their last 10 games. In the Western Conference playoff picture, they sit a game behind the 3rd seed Los Angeles Clippers, and they also sit a game and a half ahead of the 5th place Denver Nuggets and the 6th seed Portland Trailblazers, to give a sense of where the Lakers are, as they sit 5 games behind the first place Utah Jazz out west. With this loss, the Orlando Magic are now 15-31 with the 2nd worst record in the Eastern Conference. They currently sit 7 games out of the playoff picture, as they sit 17 games behind the first place Philadelphia 76ers. And those were the games from yesterday. Looking into what's going on with the NBA today, starting with the primetime games, because of course it is Monday. At 7:30, the Boston Celtics, sitting at 500, will host the New Orleans Pelicans, and that game will be on NBA TV, as both of those teams are led by their Duke forwards. So that'll be an amazing game of young talent to watch. And then after that, it'll be a 10 o'clock matchup between the 3rd seed in the Western Conference, the Los Angeles Clippers, and the 3rd seed in the Eastern Conference, the Milwaukee Bucks. That game will also be on NBA TV, as Giannis Antetokounmpo and Kawhi Leonard face off against one another. And outside of the primetime matchups, at 7 o'clock, in DC, the Wizards will host the Pacers. At 7:30, the Brooklyn Nets will host the Minnesota Timberwolves, who currently hold the worst record in the NBA. The New York Knicks will host the defending Eastern Conference champions Miami Heat, as the Heat are currently on a 6-game losing streak. And then at 8 o'clock, the Detroit Pistons, who have the worst record in the East, are going to host the Toronto Raptors. The Houston Rockets will host the Memphis Grizzlies, as Ja Morant looks to jump back into form. And the OKC Thunder will host the Dallas Mavericks, as the Dallas Mavericks currently sit at the very bottom of the Western Conference playoff picture. And jumping into 8:30, the San Antonio Spurs will host the Sacramento Kings as the Spurs hold the 7th best record in the Western Conference and look to turn things around. At 9 o'clock, the Utah Jazz, the holders of the best records in the NBA, will host the Cleveland Cavaliers. And then at 10 o'clock, the Golden State Warriors will host the Chicago Bulls. And that's what the NBA is looking like as of right now. Jumping into what's going on with college basketball, the Elite Eight matchups have officially been set as the second day of Sweet 16 play is over for both the men and the women. Starting on the men's side, in the West region in the Sweet 16, in the 1-5 matchup between 1-seed Gonzaga and 5-seed Creighton, Gonzaga will win this one 83-65. They outscored Creighton by 10 in the first half and 8 in the second. They were led, of course, by their guard, Andrew Nembhard, who had 17 points and 8 assists. And with this win, they will go on to face off in the Elite Eight against the winner between 6-seed USC and 7-seed Oregon in the last game of last night. And in that game, 6-seed USC would beat 7-seed Oregon 82-68 after putting up 41 points in both halves. But in the first half, they outscored Oregon by 15, and that would be the difference. They were led by their guard, Isaiah White, who had 22 points and 5 rebounds of his own. And with this win, 6-seed USC will face off against 1-seed Gonzaga in the West Region Final, also known as, in the West Region's Elite Eight matchup. That will be on Tuesday. And then looking at the other Sweet 16 matchups, in the 1-4 matchup between 1-seed Michigan and 4-seed Florida State, Michigan was able to pull off the 76-58 win to eliminate Florida State after Michigan outscored Florida State by 11 points in the first half and then 7 in the second. They were, of course, led by their guard, Franz Wagner, who had 13 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists. And with this win, they will face off against 11-seed UCLA because 11-seed UCLA was able to beat 2-seed Alabama in overtime, of course, led by Jaime Jaquez Jr.'s amazing step-back three to give 11-seed UCLA a very big win as they advance to the Elite Eight, to give the Elite Eight bracket a presence of a blue blood presence as they walk into this round. And so with this win, 11-seed UCLA will face off against 1-seed Michigan in the East Region Finals on Tuesday. So with that said, that's how the men's bracket got shortened from 16 so far to 8, or I guess yesterday it started with 12 and now there's officially 8 teams left. Looking out to today to the 2 Elite Eight matchups. At 7:15, it'll be the Midwest Region Final between 2-seed Houston and 12-seed Oregon State. That game will be on CBS, as of course the winner of that matchup will go to the Final Four, and they will face off against the winner in the South Region Final between 1-seed Baylor and 3-seed Arkansas, and that game will be on CBS. So that's what the men's side is looking like as we are entering the Elite Eight that starts today. Looking into what's going on with the women's side as they finish the second night of the Sweet 16. Starting in the Hemisphere region, it was a match between 1-seed South Carolina and 5-seed Georgia Tech, and in this matchup, South Carolina would win by 9. Or by 11, they won 76-65, led by their forward, Letitia Amir. The big difference would come in the third quarter where they outscored Georgia Tech by 8 total points. And with this win, they will face off against the winner between 2-seed Maryland and 6-seed Texas. And in this matchup, 6-seed Texas would end up beating Maryland 64-61 behind Charlie Collier's 16 points and 11 rebounds. This is also it was also a story of Texas overcoming Maryland in the third quarter to get the advantage. And with this win, it'll be a 1-6 matchup in the Hemisphere region in the Elite Eight on Tuesday between 1-seed South Carolina and 6-seed Texas. And in the other 2 matchups, it was in the Alamo region, starting with the 1-5 matchup between 1-seed Stanford and 5-seed Missouri State. Of course, the Cardinal would beat the Missouri State 89-62. Missouri State outscores Stanford in the fourth quarter in garbage time, but Stanford would outscore Missouri State by 8 points in the first, 15 points in the second, and 11 points in the third. It was pretty much a slaughter. They were led by their guard, Kiana Williams, who had 16 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists. And with this win, 1-seed Stanford will face off against 2-seed Louisville in the Elite Eight after 2-seed Louisville beat 6-seed Oregon yesterday, 60-42. They held Oregon to single-digit scoring in 3 of the 4 quarters as they were led by Dana Evans, their guard. throughout the game. They just really dominated Oregon, outscored them by 13 points in the second quarter. That was the big difference. And now it's 2-seed Louisville face off against 1-seed Stanford in the Alamo Region Final in their Elite Eight matchup. And now that the women's bracket is now down to 8 teams, the first day of Elite Eight matchups will take place today at 7 o'clock. It'll be a 1-2 matchup in the Riverwalk region between 1-seed UConn and 2-seed Baylor. That game will be on ESPN, as that looks to be one of the more anticipated college matchups of today. And at 9 o'clock, it'll be a matchup. It'll be the Mercado region final between 3-seed Arizona and 4-seed Indiana. And that game will come on ESPN right after. And the winner of both these two games will face off against one another next weekend in the Final Four. But with that said, that's everything that's going on with college basketball as we are now entering the Elite Eight in both brackets. Staying within the arena, but jumping onto the ice. I'm going to transition to the NHL, and of course, knowing that every team has to play within their own division, I'm going to start in the East Division as the Washington Capitals hosted the New York Rangers, and they were able to pull up a 5-4 win. All 4 of the Rangers' goals came in the third period, but they just wouldn't be enough for the Capitals. As the Capitals picked up their 23rd win of the season, the Capitals now sit on top of the East Division as they lead the second-place New York Islanders by 2 points with one less game played. And then jumping out to Boston, the Bruins hosted the New Jersey Devils. And after the only goal would come from Palmieri and the first goal from New Jersey, they would end up beating Boston 1-0 and picking up their 13th win of the season. And with their 13th win of the season, the New Jersey Devils are now sitting second from the bottom of the East Division as they trail the first place Capitals by 20 points in the table. Jumping out to the Central Division, the Detroit Red Wings hosted the Columbus Blue Jackets and were able to pull out a 4-1 win coming into the third quarter with a tied score of 1-1. The Red Wings scored 3 of their goals in the third period, and with their 12th win of the season, the Red Wings now still sit at the bottom of the Central Division as they trail the first place Tampa Bay Lightning by 22 points in the table, even though the Red Wings have played 2 more games than the Lightning. And then jumping out to Dallas, the Stars hosted the Florida Panthers. The Panthers were able to pick up a 4-1 win after scoring 3 of their goals in the first period. Their left winger, Huberdeau, had finished with 2 goals and an assist himself. With their 22nd win of the season, the Florida Panthers are now sitting with the 3rd best record in the Central Division as they trail the first place Tampa Bay Lightning by 2 points in the table. And then jumping out to Chicago, the Blackhawks hosted the Nashville Predators, and the Predators were able to pull off a 3-2 win led by their defender Josie. For Chicago, both their goals will come from their left winger DeBrincat, but it wouldn't be enough. With their 18th win of the season, the Nashville Predators now sit 5th, they sit 4th in the Central Division, tied with the Blackhawks in points in games played thus far through the season, and they both currently sit 13 points behind the Tampa Bay Lightning at the moment. And then last but not least, jumping out west to St. Louis, the Blues hosted the Anaheim Ducks. And after it went to overtime, the Ducks would finish the comeback win, winning 3-2, picking up their 11th win of the season. And with this win, the Anaheim Ducks still sit at the bottom of the West Division as they trail the first place Golden Knights by 19 points in the table, even though the Ducks have played 4 more games. Looking out to what's going on today with hockey, starting with the prime times at 7 o'clock, the Pittsburgh Penguins will host the New York Islanders on NBC Sports Network. At 10 o'clock, the Calgary Flames will host the New Jersey Nets or the Winnipeg Jets on ESPN+. And then at 10 o'clock, same time, the Vegas Golden Knights, the leaders out west, are going to host the Los Angeles Kings on ESPN+. Outside of those games at 7 o'clock, the Buffalo Sabres, holding the worst record in the East, are going to host the Philadelphia Flyers. At the same time, the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to host the Edmonton Oilers. And at 9 o'clock, the Colorado Avalanche are going to host the Anaheim Ducks. And last but not least, the San Jose Sharks will host the Minnesota Wild at 10:30. And then with that said, last but not least, jumping out to what's going on in the world of soccer, it was yet another day of Olympic qualifiers. And first off, after the U.S. lost to Honduras, they officially have lost. Or they no longer will qualify for the World Cup. This will be the 3rd straight World Cup that the USA will miss. But looking at to what else happened, France was able to beat Kazakhstan 2-0. Their first goal coming from Ousmane Dembele from Barcelona, and then an own goal would end up giving France their second goal. For England, they would end up beating Albania 2-0. Their first goal would come from their elite striker for Tottenham, Harry Kane, who had 38 goals, and then Mount would score the 63rd minute, the Chelsea midfielder, to give England a big win in the table. Jumping out to Georgia, Spain was able to beat Georgia 2-1. Of course, their first goal coming from Torres in the 56th minute, and then Olmo in the 92nd to give them the last second win. Italy was able to beat Bulgaria 2-0 as Belotti's penalty kick and Locatelli's 82nd minute would give them the advantage. Jumping to Poland, they were able to beat Andorra 3-0, as two of their goals came from their elite striker for Bayern Munich, the reigning FIFA Men's Player of the Year, Robert Lewandowski. And Germany was able to beat Romania 1-0 after their 18th minute goal from their elite winger Serge Gnabry. And that's currently everything that's going on with soccer as of right now. And with that said, today, or looking out to what's going on today with qualifiers, it's not much. It's just going to take a break, it's going to take a break in Europe as they pick up tomorrow. But of course, with that said, I want to thank everyone once again for listening to all 20 minutes. Today is Monday, March 29th, 2021, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims. With the Elite. Thanks for listening to my piece once again, and peace out. I'll catch you tomorrow.